Hello everyone, welcome to a new video about Raptorite, and in this video we're going to unpack what makes this free AI platform really so great, as well as how to start getting started in 2025. This video is meant to be just an intro only, and I will be going much deeper on this platform in the future, so stick around for that. But to get started, the way Raptorite works is that it's actually part of the Future Fiction Academy platform, I guess you could call it. And they are primarily an educational platform. They weren't really intending originally to start putting out software, but they did. And it's actually turned out to be a really popular option, right up there with the big heavy hitters like Raptorite and Novel Crafter, except that Raptorite is completely free, at least free for the software itself. The AI words that come through it are totally different. So that's why when you come to Raptorite.com, or you can use the link down below, it is an affiliate link, but I mean, it's free. So I'm not getting much of a commission from it unless you go on to buy other stuff. But that's why when you come here, you'll see this login to Raptorite via Teachable. You might not actually see this the first time you come here. This might just be for me. But all you have to do here is select register for free, and this will give you free access to Raptorite. Now, you will also get free access to a course walking you through how to use Raptorite. So you don't even need me necessarily to give you that instruction, because it's all right there. But hopefully my additional tutorials here on the channel will be of help to you in that regard. So once you've gone ahead and registered for free, you'll be able to get in. Now, when you log in, you might see something like this, or it might look a little different, but that's because Future Fiction Academy recently updated Raptorite, so it's now called Raptorite Plus. And Raptorite Plus comes with a cloud storage option, because before it was just all stored in your browser, and there were some issues with people losing their work and everything like that. This is still a program where I recommend every time you're done with it to make sure to back up all your files somewhere, whether that's Google Drive or Notion or whatever you use. But you can go ahead and say Open Nexus, and it'll bring you to their Nexus Cloud Manager, where you can convert old legacy projects. If you've been working in Raptorite before, you can, update all your cloud projects and everything, and then you can go here to return to Raptorite Plus. All right, so when you first log into Raptorite, it'll look something like this, assuming that you've done all of the updates and everything, and you've gotten past that. And there are a couple of things that you need to do right off the bat when we're just starting out. Probably the most important of them is to go right here and make sure we're inputting your Open Router API key. So like I said, Raptorite itself is completely free. You don't have any overhead costs with it. But you will have to pay for your AI words that you generate, assuming you're using a paid model. You can actually use free models inside of Raptorite, in which case everything will be completely free. But the free models tend to be as good as what you pay for, which is nothing. So they're not really that great, most of them, but you can sometimes get a few that do really well. So to get this, you go to your Open Router account. I've done videos on Open Router in the past. It's a very important third-party platform that I strongly recommend you take a look at. But you can get there at openrouter.ai. We use this also for Novel Crafter. I also use it in my automations. So I strongly recommend checking out Open Router and making an account. And once you've created an account, you can come up here and go to Keys in the top right corner. And here, this is where you can create an API key. So just click on Create API Key, maybe name it something like Raptorite Plus or something like that, or just Raptorite API. Go ahead and leave the credit limit open and make sure there's no expiration, unless you want there to be an expiration, and hit create. And then it'll give you this big long string of numbers. If you want to continue using this in the future, make sure you save this somewhere. But it's not necessarily something you have to do, because you can always create a new API key if you have to, but you will not be able to get this exact number again. So copy it, and let's go back to Raptorite and paste it in here under Open Router API key. And that's all you need to do. You're pretty much done now. So that is the most important thing to get set up with Raptorite, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to use AI inside of Raptorite. So now that that's in there, you can now connect to Open Router to actually generate your words. All right, so let's take a brief tour of Raptorite or Raptorite Plus, so you can get a sense for what you can do here. And it's a very simple program, but it's pretty powerful in what it can do with its simplicity. In fact, I actually consider it to be the closest thing to the automations that I build, just in a more tactile form. So it's not as complex as Novel Crafter is, but you don't necessarily need all of that complexity. Anyway, that's just my little brief blurb about it before we get started. So on the side here, you will see a couple of different things. We have AI, we have settings, we have projects, and we have prompts. Prompts is another new feature here in Raptorite Plus, which I think you will really like. But let's first get here to AI. First of all, we need to pick what models we like. First of all, the FFA, Future Fiction Academy, has their top 10. You can select what those are here. So these are the favorites of FFA, and I find that these are the ones that I use the most as well. Sonnet 4.5 is probably my go-to for most things, as well as Gemini 2.5 Pro is another one of my favorites. Some of these are great for other situations. The only one that is not here that I like a lot is Claude Opus, but I only really use that one for one purpose, which is writing a first draft, because Opus is an expensive model to run. So let's say, hey, I actually would like to have Opus on there. You can actually start starring your favorite models. So if you go here to this button, Model Favorites, you can go through the list of models, and there's a whole bunch of them available on OpenRouter, and go through and actually mark down which ones are your favorites. So like I said, I really like Opus 4.1. I like Sonnet 4.5. I like Gemini 2.5 Pro, and for less expensive stuff, I rather like 2.5 Flash as well. Those are my favorites for now, at least. So I'll go ahead and set save, and then I can always add any more. Now, if I come down here to where it says favorites, I have that list of my favorite models here. So that's a really handy thing to do there as well. Also, if you select any one of these, so let's select Sonnet 4.5, you can adjust the temperature, the output limit, which I usually like this set for as high as it'll go. You can select how many reasoning tokens you want it to have if you want it to allow for reasoning. So we can go ahead and set that to 800 or so. And you can just do this for each model as you go along. And actually, these settings will stay the same no matter which model you use. Some of them, like I know the Claude models have different temperature settings than other models. So you might need to adjust this depending on what you do. I typically keep most of my models at 1. I rarely see a good use case to increase it or lower it. Sometimes there are good reasons, but for the most part, you can get by with your temperature at 1. Also here among the models are FFA's favorite spicy models, which we've got a couple of good ones in here. Some of these are a little outdated in my opinion. I've tried like some of these here at the bottom, like Mythomex and Midnight Rose, and yeah, I don't see them as being quite as good. But these ones up here, Mistral Medium, Grok 4, Aeon 1, are all excellent for not safe for work stuff. There's also a list of free models here. Again, you get what you pay for, but there are usually some good free models here. The Quen models are decent, so you can take a look at those there. Or you can just select all models, and then you'll have the option to look through everything, but this can be a little overwhelming on just how many models there are here. So I usually, just pick my favorites, go to my favorites, and I can now just navigate between those. All right, so we're pretty much done with everything here that we need to look at on the AI tab. So let's look at the settings. There isn't much to cover here, but there is a visual theme that you can kind of go through. Right now it's just set to fantasy. If you want like pastels, you can get some like slightly different options here. Aqua, forest, just kind of a darker one. Dracula, I kind of like that as a dark theme. But let's just bring it back to fantasy, just the regular one. You can decide whether to turn on hotkeys or not, and generally you're going to want these on. These are the hotkeys that you will want to use to actually start writing inside of Raptorite. And you can change these, so you can change it to different things. Right now it's just this backslash that is to request something from the LLM, as well as the equals sign to confirm. So those are just the ones you'll use to kind of ask the AI to continue writing and confirm that you want to insert what it gave you, essentially. And you can change these within reason. There's only a couple of options, just depending on what you like. But they picked those as the default because those aren't used very often in like regular typing. All right, and then you don't really have to worry about these utilities too much at this moment. So now let's go to project. And project is pretty self-explanatory. This is where you set up your project. So you can go here and we can just name this. I'll just name it test project for now. I will eventually, I'm planning on writing a novella inside of Raptorite, as well as in all of the other platforms. You've already seen me in my live streams do one with just chatbots. I'm going to be doing one here inside of Raptorite, so I'll have that later. But for now, let's just call this test project. And then you have different documents inside of this test project. So this one's just called main, or excuse me, I had this wrong. So this main is the folder. And you can create different folders and adjust how you want them situated. And then within each folder, then you can create new documents inside of them, and you'll see they all have these different things. So now I can rename this, like, let's just call it characters, and we can go to this one. It's asking me, it is telling me that it needs to sync everything before you switch, which is fine. We just hit switch now. Add another one that we'll call it world building. And let's say I decide, you know what, I don't really want this in that folder. You can just move things up here. If we right click on main here, maybe we could just call this like pre-writing, okay? And then this one here, we can call it chapters, or maybe act 1 or act 2, you know, that sort of thing. And you can structure these however you want. All right, so now I have this set up kind of like I would do it personally. I have brain dump, I have characters, I have world building, I have a synopsis and an outline. There's nothing in these yet, but I'm just kind of getting things set up for later. You might also want something like a plot template. You know, I often like to include a template for my plot when I'm creating my outline. That's something we could put here. You could also put something like, let's say, writing sample. Okay, so these don't necessarily need to be written by AI. I can take samples of my own writing, stick it here inside of writing sample, and now I have that available as a resource that I can bring into the prompt when I want. All right, so that's the basic idea behind the projects. The nice thing about this also is you can turn these on or off. What that does is it shows you that these will be available to the AI when you prompt it next. So you're giving the AI context of these different things. So let's say, like, if I'm constructing the outline, I want this plot template thing turned on because I want it to be able to access that plot template while it's helping me create the outline. However, this isn't necessarily something I want when I'm writing a first draft, in which case I would turn that off and probably turn on something like characters and world building and the outline instead. So that's just an idea of like how those work. And it has this really nice toggle here that makes it super easy to know like what you're doing. You also have this little button here in the corner where you can just go ahead and toggle that, and it'll toggle everything on or off. So you can toggle everything in the folder on or off if you want. All right, last but not least, let's take a look at prompts. So by default, it has 2 prompts here, the continue and the revise prompt. And you can actually click on these and see what they have. So the continue prompt goes something like this. Continue the story below without repeating the story unless it is for literary effect. Include only the text you are adding. You should read what is before the tag and match the same style and tone so the next text fits into the narrative properly. Then the revise one says you will be doing a revision of text within the passage tags. You will include only text and not tags. Follow any instructions found in between these 2 brackets instead of the passage. Additional context if available, ignore if not present. So this is where it might add the extra documents and stuff like that you have turned on. And you can also add in additional instructions for the revision if available, and ignore if not found. But let's say you wanted to have your own prompt here. To do that, you can just go here to add prompt and enter in your prompt here, and then hit save, and you will have your own prompt. So let's just do a really simple one, like summarize the selection in 1 sentence. And I'm probably not doing this perfectly, but let's go ahead and say 1 sentence summary, and hit save. So if we go to, say, a website, I'll just grab all of this content here. This is my own website, so I'm okay doing this. Put it all in here. Okay, so I didn't quite do this perfectly. So first of all, I need to add in the selected text code. So you have to just insert that here. So this is a little bit more advanced for some of you. You don't necessarily need to get into this yet. But I'm going to say, we're going to change this to summarize the selected passage in one sentence. And we probably don't need this additional context for this particular type of prompt. So we're just going to take that off, but we're going to go ahead and hit save. Now, if I select this entire article here and I just go to one sentence summarizer and then hit this button right here, it should, down here at the bottom, it says this article comprehensively explains the hero's journey narrative structure, detailing both Joseph Campbell's original 17-stage monomyth, et cetera, et cetera. So it did, in fact, it was able to read the thing, and it was able to give me that one sentence summary. So now if I like this, I could just go ahead and hit insert. I could also hit try again. And now that is in there. All right, now let's actually start writing something. So I'm going to create some brackets like this. And I'm just going to say start a chapter with a young girl named Alice walking into a room where a bunch of board room members are waiting for her. She has a presentation to give, and she is very nervous. All right. Obviously, if I were writing a proper thing, I would go through and make sure I have all of my outline and everything set before I get to this point, but we're just starting here. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm actually going to hit the revise button here and run that. I can add additional instructions if I want. I don't have any right now, so I'll go ahead and hit submit. And here it is, starting the story. Already it's got a couple of cliches in here, like there's a Chen last name, very common thing there. It also made her 12 years old, which is interesting. But yeah, so we already went and did that, and now I could always just take this revise and change it a little bit. But we can just say I like this, and I can say, okay, insert. I could also hit replace, which is, in this case, is exactly what I want to do, because I don't want this section here to still be there, because this was more the command that I wanted it to do. So instead, I'm going to hit replace, and it will replace that command that I asked it to revise, right? So the revision is not just revising something. It's also a good way to actually take a look at the commands that you've given it and have it actually create the next chapter, essentially, or create the next part of the chapter. So that's essentially how you use Raptorite. Now, there's more that we could talk about here, but really I want to keep this as more of an introductory thing. So we're going to go ahead and stop for now. But this is definitely a program I recommend because a lot of people don't have a whole lot of money. And so having a free tool like this is great, especially one that is as versatile as Raptorite. I think there are some bits of it that are a little bit trickier to get used to, that aren't quite as intuitive, right? But then once you learn them, you know, like how to start a prompt and everything like that, it becomes super easy to do. And I do recommend this one strongly if you are tied, if your budget is tied up or anything like that. I will say, compared to the others, Novel Crafter is a little bit more advanced, which is a good thing for some people. For others, it can be like a case of analysis paralysis where you don't actually get a whole lot of writing done because you're so busy filling out a codex or something. Secondly, there is Raptorite, and Raptorite is good as well, but they have their own way of doing things, and it is not nearly as flexible as Raptorite or Novel Crafter is. It's also way more expensive, and I'm not really a fan of the model. So there are different reasons why you would want one or the other. I do think Raptorite is a solid one, though. They will all work, but Raptorite has become a popular favorite inside of my my community, which, by the way, you can see down below. We do a quarterly book in a month challenge, and we're in the middle of one right now as I'm recording this. And Colm, who's the guy who leads us in that challenge, he uses Raptorite pretty much exclusively. A lot of the instruction that he gives you is in Raptorite, which of course can be adapted for other programs, but it's become very popular inside of the group. And so I definitely recommend it for those of you just starting out, especially. Now, you may be wondering why this is free. And again, Future Fiction Academy is more of an educational platform. And they make their money from other courses that you may or may not buy. So you can see here in my account, there's a couple of courses that I've already opted into, but they have, and some of which are free, like their basics course and their Raptorite basics course. It's all free. But if you log into what we've got here, you can see there are quite a few courses in here, some of which are about Raptorite, some of which are unrelated to Raptorite. Like we've got one here about the software plotter, which some of you may have heard of. There's others, all kinds of different topics. So this is how you support them if you like what they're doing with Raptorite, is going to one of these courses and trying them out. We got translations with AI. We've got writing a series with AI, all kinds of different things. And so if you want to check those out, you can. But if you don't want to spend any money, Raptorite is completely free along with the course on how to use it. So go ahead and check out my link down below and check them out. And I will see you in the next video.